We all talk about a fair fight, right? Where both sides start on equal footing. But what happens when that fight is a legal battle and one person has all the resources? Well, today, we're going to explore a really fascinating legal tool designed to do just that, level the playing field in matrimonial disputes. So, let's just dive right in with this question. Imagine a legal battle that just drags on and on for months, maybe even years. Now, if one person has the money to keep that fight going indefinitely, but the other is struggling to even pay for a lawyer, how can that process possibly be fair? How does the law stop someone from basically being outfunded in their search for justice?
Well, the legal system has an answer, and it's called maintenance pendente Lite. I know, it sounds a little fancy, but the name itself is the key. Pendente Lite is Latin, and it literally just means while the lawsuit is pending. So it's a temporary financial lifeline ordered by a court to support a spouse during the legal proceedings, not after. That part's crucial. And in India, the legal backbone for this whole concept is found in a very specific place. Section 24 of the Hindu Marriage Act, which, believe it or not, goes all the way back to 1955. And the law is pretty clear here. It says if one spouse, and notice this, it could be the husband or the wife, doesn't have sufficient income for their own support and for the legal expenses, the court can step in. What's so important here is that it's not just about day-to-day living costs. It also covers the money needed to actually fight the case. So let's just boil all that legal language down. In simple terms, it means the court can look at the situation and tell the spouse with more income, hey, you need to financially support the other person while this case is going on. It's basically a temporary equalizer. Okay, so we get what it is, but why does this law even exist? It's not just about transferring money from one person to another. Section 24 is actually built on 4 really important objectives that get to the very heart of what fairness is all about. So it all starts with number 1. Financial support for a person's basic needs. From there, it flows into number 2, covering litigation expenses, because let's be honest, justice shouldn't just be for those who can afford it. Now, those 2 things together make the 3rd objective possible, equal access to justice. And all of this culminates in the 4th and final objective, upholding fundamental human rights. This isn't just some minor rule, it's deeply connected to India's constitutional guarantees of equality before the law. All right, so theory is one thing, but how does this all play out in a real courtroom? Let's take a look at a landmark case that really put this law to the test. Asha Devi versus Pominder Kumar Chhabra. So here are our key players. On one side, you've got Asha Devi, the wife. She filed for this interim maintenance. And on the other side, Pominder Kumar Chhabra, the husband, he filed for divorce, but, and this is the important part, he failed to pay the maintenance that the court had ordered him to pay. Now, check out this timeline. January 1997, the court orders the husband to pay. Just 7 months later, he hasn't paid, so the court basically hits pause on the whole case. They adjourn it sine die, which means indefinitely. Fast forward through years of nothing happening. Then, in 2002, a lower court actually rules that the wife isn't owed any money for that whole time the case was stalled. This created a huge legal question. And this brings us to the central puzzle that the High Court had to figure out. When you hit the pause button on a case, does that also pause the duty to pay maintenance? I mean, can you use a procedural delay as a loophole to get out of a financial order from the court? The Delhi High Court's answer was a resounding no. And their reasoning was just brilliant. They clarified that pausing the case wasn't about canceling the order. It was, and I'm quoting here, a tool utilized by the court to enforce its direction. In other words, the court was basically saying, you want your divorce case to move forward? Then you better follow our maintenance order first. So the court's message was crystal clear. The duty to pay does not stop just because the case is on hold. It keeps going right up until the moment that case is formally and finally over. No loopholes, period. This case wasn't just about this one couple. It really hammered home some powerful ideas about what this temporary support actually means in the bigger picture of justice. So let's just break down the impact here. First, the court confirmed this is a statutory obligation. It's a legal duty, not a choice. It completely shut the door on procedural loopholes, making it clear you can't just use delays to get out of paying. It also showed that these orders have an independent existence. They aren't just a footnote to the main case. And ultimately, all of this is to ensure dignity. So one spouse can't use money to bully the other into giving up.
And this kind of brings us full circle, doesn't it? This whole idea of maintenance pendente lite isn't really just about money. It's about access to justice itself. It forces us to ask that fundamental question. If justice is supposed to be blind, can it really afford to ignore a huge financial imbalance between two people? This legal principle says nope. To get to a fair outcome, you have to start with a fair fight.